Hello. It's a great pleasure to meet you all today. Until just 2 years ago, I lived in North Korea and I'm Yumi. In May 2023, my family of 8 and I risked our lives to escape by sea in search of freedom and arrived in South Korea. Being here today to share the pain of our ordeal with you is deeply meaningful. But at the same time, my heart is incredibly heavy. In fact, it was my husband who planned and led our defection. But since he is unable to be here today, I stand in his place as his wife who witnessed and supported the entire defection process from beginning to the end. I was born in the 1990s, part of North Korea's millennial generation. When Kim Jong-un, who had studied abroad, came to power in 2012, he promised that people would no longer have to tighten their belts. However, he turned out to be just as much a dictator as his grandfather and father. The money extracted from the blood and sweat of starving North Koreans was used not for the people's lives, but for missiles and weapons. He even killed his own uncle so brutally that his body was torn apart by anti-aircraft guns. I lived in a coastal border area very close to South Korea. On clear days, I could even see passengers' planes taking off from South Korea from our house. Occasionally, we found leaflets from the South Korea, and more surprisingly, we could receive South Korean TV signals clearly, something impossible in 99% of North Korea. Watching foreign content is still illegal in North Korea, and those caught can face severe punishment, including public execution. Watching broadcasts from the enemy south is unimaginable. Yet, through South Korean broadcast, we learn more about the outside world than most North Koreans and realize the contradictions of the North Korean regime and that we're living in a vast prison without bars. My husband and I had been contemplating defection for a long time, but our decisive moment came in November 2022, when Kim Jong-un introduced his young daughter Kim Ju-ae to the public for the first time. She appeared in public in TV with a hairstyle and clothing that reflected wealth and privilege, unlike the starving citizens. Even when visiting military units, high-ranking officers, despite being much older, bowed to her, making us feel that there was no hope left in North Korea. Once our eldest daughter turned 6, the time she'd start kindergarten, my husband no longer wanted our children to endure a 4th generation of hereditary rule. In North Korea, systematic brainwashing begins from the kindergarten. At that time, my husband told me, "We cannot let our children live as political slaves. Even if we ourselves cannot enjoy it, we must give our children freedom. That is the best choice we can make for our children as parents," so said he. My husband at that time owned and operated several small vessels. And thanks to this, he had close business relations with the maritime border guards. Based on this, we planned to escape North Korea by sea. Our escape required thorough preparation, including reconnaissance, meticulous planning, and strict security measures. It is because a single mistake could have caused the lives of all 9 members of our family. There were a few passages to the sea, but armed maritime guards would inspect the identity cards and departure approval documents of the fishermen. There were also landmines and areas of double and triple layers of high voltage electrified fences. Between April 1st and May 6, 2023, we attempted to defect 3 times. The first attempt was on a day when heavy rain poured down. My husband deliberately chose a rainy day because it was easier to avoid the soldiers' eyes and less likely to be detected by the Navy's radar. After preparing everything, in order to avoid the soldiers' eyes and not to get caught by the Navy's radar, we went through the landmine and went to the sea. At that time, our plan was to tell our family we are going to catch sea snails. And after everyone is on board, then to reveal at the last moment, now we're going to South Korea. However, when our entire family arrived at the site, my husband and I were shocked. The boat, which should have been ready for departure, was instead tightly secured by my younger brother, who was the boat's captain. At that moment, my husband realized that it was a big mistake not to have persuaded my brother in advance. The next day, my husband quietly called my brother to a secluded beach and revealed the defection plan. He said, "What do you think of this society?" My brother remained silent. "I think there's no hope in this country anymore. I want to be a proper father to my children as well. And you're in your early 20s. Don't you want to live in the bigger world?" Together on a ship, we always looked at the airplanes from the South Korea and wondered, when will we get to ride one? Now, let's go on a cool world trip together. Having deeply trusted my husband, my brother decided to leave North Korea with us on that day. My brother's knowledge of the sea terrain made our plan much more realistic. And without his help, a successful defection would have been technically impossible. After our first and second attempts failed, my husband and I lived in an indescribable state of anxiety and fear that security agents could burst in at any moment and arrest or even kill us. Our third attempt in 2023, from April 1st to May, we attempted to defect 3 times. In order to get to the boat, we had to go through the minefield. It was very dangerous, and no one went to that field, meaning that it was less guarded. My mother, having lived in that area for a long time, knew that area better than anyone. And under her guidance, on that evening, the 9 members of our family safely passed through the minefield and were finally able to board the boat. In preparation for any unexpected situation, we loaded the boat with spare engine parts, fuel, knives, axes, and even Molotov cocktails made from gasoline. The women also prepared red pepper powder bombs meant to be thrown at an attacker's face to impair their vision. My husband also prepared highly poisonous pufferfish roe as a means of suicide in case we're captured. From May to April 2023, we attempted to defect 3 times. These water zones were very near to South Korea, a military operation zone, and boats are not allowed to depart at night. With all preparations in place, we headed out to sea at low speed so as not to be detected by nearby Marine Guards of North Korea. However, the joy was short-lived. A searchlight flashed behind us from a North Korean Navy patrol boat. At that time, it was around 11 p.m. The surroundings were pitch black, and all I could hear was the sound of dark waves, the faint hum of our small boat's engine, and the roaring noise of the patrol boat growing louder and louder. At that moment, my heart began to race wildly, and my body froze as if it had turned to stone. Although our boat was running at full speed, the patrol boat was closing in fast. My husband, who was steering, shouted to my brother and rest of my family, "Throw everything heavy into the sea, even the fishing nets behind the boat." Even though the boat was running at full speed, the patrol boat was closing in fast. As the engine suddenly accelerated, black smoke filled the small boat with a deafening roar, and my children began to cry. However, at that moment, a truly miraculous thing began to happen. Was it a divine intervention? The enormous pile of fishing nets we had thrown behind us seemed to have become entangled in the propeller of the pursuing patrol boat because their lights began to grow further and further away from us. That night, our family raced through the rough sea toward freedom, and we were finally able to reach the northern limit line. And over there, we were rescued by a Republic of Korea Navy vessel on border patrol. I will never forget that moment when we crossed the sea of fear and reached the sea of freedom. We have finally become citizens of Republic of Korea, the land of freedom we only once dreamt about. But heartbreakingly, the man who protected me and our children is no longer with us. A few months ago, he was taken from us in an unexpected incident, and he is now a star in the sky. I want to take this moment to say something to him. Thank you for everything, truly. Thanks to you, we were able to find the real freedom here. There is one final message I feel compelled to share with you all. Even at this very moment, 26 million people in North Korea continue to live under a ruthless 3 generations of dictatorship, stripped of their freedom of movement, freedom of expression, and cut off from the world, trapped in a vast prison. But thanks to the ongoing efforts of the Human Rights Foundation, which continues to bring outside information into North Korea, and thanks to each one of you here who cares about North Korean human rights, change is happening. A quiet but powerful transformation in the minds of people like me. If my family and I had never encountered outside information while we were still in North Korea, we might still be living as a physical and mental slaves under that brutal regime. That is why I want to take this moment to express my deepest gratitude and compassion and support. Thank you.